Listen to this. United States Supreme Court, 1948.
United States Supreme Court, 1948. McCullen v. Board of Education. Traditionally, organized education in the Western world was church-educated. It could hardly be otherwise when the education of children was primarily study of the Word and the ways of God. Even in the Protestant countries, where there was a less close identification of church and state, the basis of education was largely the Bible, and its chief purpose inculcation of piety. Calvin Coolidge, addressed to the Holy Name Society in Washington, D.C. September 21, 1924, the worst evil that could be inflicted upon the youth... would be to leave them without restraint... at the mercy of their own uncontrolled inclinations. Under such conditions education would be impossible, and all orderly development... hopeless. I do not need to picture the result. President Coolidge concluded, it seems... perfectly plain that... the right to equality, liberty and property... have for their foundation reverence for God. If we could imagine that swept away... our American government could not long survive.
And what do we see, and in a sense, there's kind of a, I'm not going to say there's kind of a prophetic statement from Calvin Coolidge here. Kind of, but I'm not going to say it's, like I said, a prophet-type prophet, but there is some echoing, cold, sobering thoughts. And we exactly see that in our society today, when we began to take God out of our public, out of our churches, our God out of our schools, etc. We see our youth are being left without restraint. Their own inclinations, their own uncontrolled inclinations. And we see a breakdown and dissolution of orderly development in our society today. Look at the number of nutcases and psychopaths and serial killers and rapists and so forth. And if we keep up our direction in America, our government will not survive. And all students growing up in school should have a sound education on what the founding fathers and their intentions, so they can understand how our system worked and how things work. Without that understanding, we see we'll have moral decay in our society. Without listen to this part is very important for you to pay attention to.
Many of our founding fathers are quoted by people to give the indication that they were not Christians. Many of the quotes used to come to this conclusion have been taken out of context and therefore twisted to meet a person's given agenda. First of all, though, it must be noted that it is generally accepted that over 250 men were instrumental in the foundation of our country, thus qualifying for the designation of founding father. Take a look at the following list: 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence, 14 presidents from 1774 to 1789, President of the United States in Continental Congress. First 46 Presidents of the United States, beginning with George Washington. 36 plus prominent military leaders of the Revolutionary War. 55 men in the Constitutional Convention. 38 signers of the Constitution. 13 state governors responsible for leading the ratification of the Constitution. 90 members of the First Congress, creators of the Bill of Rights. Plus, earliest members of the Supreme Court, others like Patrick Henry, Thomas Paine, and Noah Webster, who called for the Constitutional Convention. When a particular founder is quoted and appears to not be a Christian, always remember that there are these 250 plus men. Most of them are never questioned nowadays in regards to their faith. A few like John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, Thomas Paine, and Benjamin Franklin, and James Madison have been isolated with quotes to try to show they were not Christians. We never hear Charles Carroll, Alexander Hamilton, Elias Boudinot, John Quincy Adams, Patrick Henry, or many others questioned in regards to faith, with any serious allegations. Many times you will see quotes that omit material with an ellipsis. Be careful when reading these types of quotes because they are missing material that may change the meaning of the quote. This is done quite frequently by those that have an agenda and want to prove their point by eliminating a portion of the quote that disproves the point they are trying to make. It is acceptable to use ellipsis in order to conserve space, but not when it changes the meaning of the quote. Another thing that we must take in consideration is what is known as life seasons. A life season refers to a time in our lives where actions, beliefs, words, and motives may differ from other times in our lives. For instance, a teenager may believe that he will never die, at least not soon, and has little to no concern for safety. His actions are affected and he drives like a maniac everywhere he goes and talks about doing daring things and brags when he does them. A life season is a temporary phenomenon. Another life season we may encounter is the time in our lives when we have young children. Suddenly we are concerned about safety, wholesomeness in our actions and words, and we may become embarrassed about our former wild days, or just laugh at them. Other life seasons occur when a relative dies, a financial reversal happens, or some other major event. During those times, we may say or do things that do not characterize our true and dearly held beliefs, but we say them out of anxiety, frustration, or other emotions. Therefore we need to look at the overall comments made by them, not just one lone quote. Historical revisionism. 1. The changing or rewriting of history done to accomplish a social agenda and to agree with current beliefs. 2. Lies. It is a known fact that history is often revised to suit the needs of the speaker. Hitler revised history to fit his desires and beliefs. Revised history can appear so true that it is often believed without a question. This is exactly what happened during We could give many contemporary examples of historical revisionism. Many times the revision is not done knowingly, but unknowingly ... but it is revision nonetheless. In our current discussion, we must regard the possibility that history could be revised in regards to the faith of our founders and their intent for our country from a religious standpoint. When examining a quote, please consider the possibility that the quote is a product of historical revisionism, including any quote I give you. Begin your studies by reading all the inaugural addresses of our presidents. These documents have been meticulously protected and are widely available. Read the Northwest Ordinance. Read George Washington's farewell address. After reading these documents, formulate a tentative position on the faith and intent of our founders. Do this apart from many of your previously held beliefs. Then look up the religious affiliations of our presidents. Are any of them Jewish, Muslim, or atheistic? How many attended church? Then look at our currency. In God we trust. Is this a deistic belief? Do you know what deism is? Study deistic beliefs and compare them to what you see on our coins. Investigate Supreme Court rulings from the first 100 years of our nation. Was Christianity and religion alienated from public life? What did the US Supreme Court say? These cases and the written opinions have also been wonderfully preserved. After this initial study, you will be ready to tackle larger issues and able to study letters, public speeches, etc. Never forget that historical revisionism must be dealt with in any serious study of history, including the founding of our own country. On Adams, this would be the best of all possible worlds, if there were no religion in it. This quote is taken from a letter from John Adams to Thomas Jefferson, April 19, 1817, page 2. Library of Congress page that contains this excerpt. http://www.look.gov/exhibit/religion/VCO06646.jpg. In this letter, John Adams is recalling a conversation between a parson and a school teacher, pedagogue, _. The parson and the pedagogue lived much together, but were eternally disputing about government and religion. One day, when the schoolmaster had been more than commonly fanatical and declared if he were a monarch, he would have but one religion in his dominion. The parson coolly replied cleverly, "You would be the best man in the world, if you had no religion." 20 times, in the course of my late reading, have I been upon the point of breaking out, "This would be the best of all possible worlds, if there were no religion in it." But in this exclamatic I should have been as fanatical as Bryant, or cleverly. Without religion this world would be something not fit to be mentioned in polite company, I mean hell.